Welcome to round number 5 here of this VGC League Challenge here in second turn place at Pico Rivera, California. I am Jesus Coronel. We have our round 5 matchup. We have Brian Diaz, we have Gayle Taylor, and we have two very interesting teams here. Brian is going to be bringing his Terrapagos, Stringtail, Incineroar, Urshifu Rapid Strike, Raging Bolt, and Rillaboom, while Gayle, they are going to bring in the Raging Bolt, Pelipper, Rillaboom, Urshifu Rapid Strike, Shenpao, and the Zamazenta. So, two interestingly good restricted Pokemon between these two trainers, and one of them is setup oriented, the other one can just perform out of mediation and provide defensive utility should it need it. But Brian has a bit of interesting tools in his disposal, which is the Stringtail with the Encore Disable, as well as the Power Surge of those Rillaboom, Raging Bolt, and the Rillaboom. You know, it's just fantastic support of this Terrapagos team all around, while Gayle can certainly rely on that Zamazenta to get those immediate damage with that body press, and then as well able to take advantage of Shenpao and the Ghost of Ruin. And then certainly with that Assault Vest and Raging Bolt combination should allow that Rillaboom to do whatever it likes to, allows Zamazenta to get like more defensive utility at their disposal. And Gayle's going to send out Pelipper and Urshifu with the lead. Brian going to lead the Incineroar and the Urshifu. And funny thing to note here, both of these Urshifus are Choice Scarf, so it is going to go down to how well trained both these Urshifus are, depending on as well as what Terras they have. Because from the looks of it, one of them can avoid the Fake Out with a Ghost Terra, the other one cannot. And so for Brian here, this turn is going to be more so getting as much damage as he can with the rain, but unfortunately you're staring down two different water types, so Surging Strike is not going to do a whole lot of damage. I think the Urshifu has to go for the U-turn here to make sure it at least pivots out to a more favorable position to at least allow this Incineroar to not take as much damage as it needs to be, because I think it has to be noted that this Incineroar is currently weak to both of these water types. Its Terra is Ghost, but that likely won't be able to save it from a double target should it be happening that way. So I think it's pretty likely that this Incineroar is either going to Terra or fake out one of the two Pokemon to get it out of the way, which is going to be that Urshifu. And Gayle's Urshifu actually ends up being faster as Brian's goes for the Surging Strikes onto their Pelipper. And that's unfortunately not doing enough damage to threaten the Pelipper with two straight Surging Strikes. As they only need 3 to get the knockout. Here comes the Weather Ball with the rain. Now that it's double power with the weather control, not enough for a one-hit knockout. The Incineroar hangs on with just 26 HP. And now the Urshifu has a little bit of a decision to make, because Incineroar is likely going to be going down here in this turn. No Protect to be seen, and this Urshifu's Choice Scarf, and it looks to be Gayle's that's going to be the faster Urshifu. You know, they've trained their Urshifu to be as fast, even though it has a Choice Scarf, just to make sure it outbeats other Pokemon. Like Calyrex Shadow Rider as an example, you know, pretty comfortably. And here comes another Surging Strike. It will just take one hit to knock out the Urshifu, and that's gonna, knock out the Incineroar from this Urshifu from Gayle. And now it's just kind of what Ryan does in this turn here with this Urshifu. He targeted the Pelipper the last time, and they targeted it again. That is not promising damage here, and it's going to lead to a likely Hurricane from this Pelipper to knock out the Urshifu from Brian, and that'll just give Gayle their 4-2 lead advantage on Pokemon count. Should this Hurricane come out, and it will, that fighting type weakness is going to get exposed, and down goes Urshifu in a single hit. And the last two Pokemon from Brian, as we see on the screen here, is going to be that Raging Bolt and that Terrapagos. So Raging Bolt and Terrapagos, not a bad deal to end the game on, because you have a Thunderclap option on this Urshifu to take it out of play, and this Terrapagos can comfortably set up Calm Minds with a Terra Shell active, and that just allows the Pelipper to just maybe have a chance to break that Terra Shell, or it's going to be doing a very minimal damage towards that Raging Bolt. So although Brian is down in Pokemon count, I believe Brian has a little bit of a setup pressure, because you could just go Thunderclap onto this Urshifu and make sure that you get the Urshifu out of the way here, and then you just go for the Calm Mind onto this Terrapagos to get it boosted and ready for damage output. But it looks like Brian just has a different plan in mind, which is to go Stellar Terra onto this Terrapagos to get rid of the rain to make sure Hurricane becomes inaccurate. And as for Gayle, you have to accept that one of these two Pokemon is likely to get thunderclapped. And so, what is the defensive measure here? Well, it would have been a swap out the Rillaboom if we've seen it, but unfortunately we did not see that. Here comes the Stellar Terra from this Terrapagos here, and it's going to go ahead and activate the Terraform Zero ability to get rid of the rain, meaning Hurricane and Surging Strikes are now going to have a bit of drawback in damage reduction. Pelipper protects here to call out a Thunderclap going that certain direction, but did it go for the Pelipper? It did not. It went after the Urshifu, and down it'll go to the magnet boosted Thunderclap from this Raging Bolt. And Terrapagos unfortunately went for a Terra Star Storm instead of going for that Calm Mind. So although the rain is down, you unfortunately did not get the opportunity to go for that Calm Mind, meaning your damage is still going to be decent, but it's not going to be, you know, all that great. Gale's taking the time to think about their options, because if they can get into a position where they are not really as threatened to a Raging Bolt as it once was, then you can get into a situation where you can just go ahead and set up the Body Press for a later turn and then just not deal with the Terrapagos whatsoever. First though, when we see a Rillaboom swap in here, you get the Grassy Terrain in play. It's not going to be doing a whole lot of damage towards that Raging Bolt, but it should deal a heavy amount of damage to that Terrapagos, but it just comes down to what the Pelipper does here, because Pelipper is still under threat of Thunderclap from the Raging Bolt. Should it not go for it, it has a Thunderbolt option available. And here's Rillaboom going for the fake out onto this Raging Bolt to make sure it doesn't get an electric type off. Oh, Wyguard comes out in front of this Pelipper, making sure that the Terra Star Storm does not connect. But I think Gayle will be surprised to see that it was a Calm Mind coming out for the Terrapagos, so it will get the special attack and special defense boost to increase its damage output. The only problem is here, the Wyguard's warranted because the Terra Star Storm is now spread damage. Because it is spread damage, your only other attack is Earth Power, meaning that you probably have to go for another Calm Mind here, or you gotta go for Protect here to make sure Terrapagos is at full steam. And Pelipper once again goes for another Wyguard here to make sure Terra Star Storm does not land onto that Rillaboom or the Pelipper. Here comes a big Grassy Glide onto the Terrapagos. Does decent amount of damage. Gets the Earth Power off onto this Rillaboom at +1 special attack. That is not doing a whole lot of damage because of the resistance. And here comes a big Thunderbolt onto the Pelipper, and down it goes. Bit of HP coming in here from that Grassy Terrain onto all of these Pokemon. And as well as the leftovers from the Terrapagos to get some of the HP back. And Gale's last Pokemon is indeed there. Zamazenta coming into play with that Dauntless Shield coming in to get that defense boost, and now Friends knock out onto the Terrapagos and potentially a whole lot of damage towards the Raging Bolt, and that leaves their options pretty limited as Brian can threaten damage with... I mean, oh, never mind. Brian is in a bit of an interesting position because Gayle, they can threaten their knockout onto the Terrapagos with a Body Press from Zamazenta, and if Zamazenta is left unchecked throughout its entire course, Brian's going to lose this battle because you have no means of touching the Rillaboom consistently. I mean, yes, you have Draco Meteor, but if you Draco Meteor now, you're going to leave your electric type attacks heavily weakened for later. Another Grassy Glide comes out into the Terrapagos. That's an under half HP this time. A double up into the Terrapagos from Gale's. Zamazenta knocks out Brian's Terrapagos, and now it is Raging Bolt versus Rillaboom and the Zamazenta of Gayle. What does the Raging Bolt do here? It gets that Magnet Boosted Thunderbolt onto the Zamazenta. Doesn't even do half damage. It gets a Paralysis. That's a win condition that Brian might actually end up having to take here. Because now that the Zamazentas have speed, it might actually have a chance to get paralyzed for multiple different turns, and that just allows Zamazenta to get exposed if it ends up getting the full para. And yeah, we do remember Gayle has not Terra yet. What are they going to Terra into? It's going to be the Terra on the Zamazenta 2, the grass type, so now you have to go Dragon Meteor for consistent damage output. But when you do that, you're going to get your damage weakened overall. A U-turn comes out into this Raging Bolt, going to do decent damage. And here goes another Thunderbolt onto the Zamazenta. It's just going to give it under 50% HP. Another body press lands onto that Raging Bolt. Yet another one will knock it out. This Rillaboom and Zamazenta duo is going to likely be enough to win Raging Bolt Gayle game number 1. Another Grassy Glide comes out onto this Raging Bolt. Actually does a lot of damage. As a matter of fact here comes the Dragon Meteor into that Zamazenta. It is enough to knock it out from that range, but I think Rillaboom has enough gas to at least get the Raging Bolt out of there because of that Grassy Glide priority and the power that it gets from that Grass type, as well as the Miracle Seed that it's holding. Although now Grassy Terrain's gone, so it is going to have weaker power. Brian can win this with a Draco Meteor critical hit, as we've seen Raging Bolt have to go for from that point. Here's a Protect from the Raging Bolt to make sure what the Rillaboom does in this situation is another wood. Okay, it's going to be a Wood Hammer this time, so now it wants the full-on damage, and if it gets the full-on damage, it will secure the game for Gayle. Wood Hammer is indeed faster than the Raging Bolt. It is enough for the knockout. Gayle Taylor wins game number 1 with that Zamazenta Rillaboom endgame that they actually ended up positioning well into. So what's the next move now from Brian? Because they were actually in a great position to go for a Terra Starstorm just before the Zamazenta got into play here. And another problem I'm already noticing on Brian's end, his only form of speed control disruption is Scream Tail with that booster energy for likely a speed. And that's an issue because all the Gale's Pokemon are going to be relatively faster than the Terrapagos, which needs at least decent amount of speed to outspeed a lot of Gale's Pokemon. And you know, Gayle trained up their team to be pretty fast overall, and that's just a problem against Brian. Now heading into this game number 2 here, Brian at least has to pivot the game plan to make sure Terrapagos has a little bit of an easier time dealing with the Zamazenta and the quick duo of Pelipper and Urshifu in that sense. And here we go, game number 2 here between Gayle and Brian. We are going to see a Rillaboom on each side as a lead, and we're going to be seeing Pelipper for Gayle and Urshifu for Brian. And noticeably enough, Gale's Rillaboom is faster than Brian's. And now going into this turn number 1 here between Brian and Gayle. Gale's going to go ahead and fake out into this Urshifu, and unfortunately now we know that Gale's Urshifu was faster. It got the flinch off onto this Urshifu, and down goes the Urshifu off the Hurricane because the fact that the fake out came first, and into the Rillaboom because Brian thought Rillaboom was going to be slower for Gayle. And instead, the fake out fails to get towards his correct target. Now down goes Urshifu in a single hit. Although Raging Bolt comes in here, I think that's a lot of damage done to Gayle. To Brian, because with Brian now losing to Urshifu, you are at a damage disadvantage. Pelipper protects his turn to make sure it doesn't get hit by a Thunderbolt in that situation, because Thunderbolt goes into the slot, then you are going to be taking a whole lot of damage, and you're likely losing out on your best chance to deal with the Terrapagos with the wide guard. We are seeing U-turn hit the Rillaboom in that scenario. It does have damage because that's a lot of, likely a high attack investment onto this Rillaboom here, and Zamazenta comes in for Gayle. What did the Raging Bolt do here? No, Rillaboom goes first. Gets a very minuscule U-turn onto the Zamazenta, doing almost no damage thanks to Dauntless Shield boost. Brian gets to at least pivot out into this Terrapagos to get a bit of free, staying power in this case. But it's still a terrible spot because... okay, at least there's a double up onto the Zamazenta. It's going to do a bit decent damage. No paralysis this time around. But Terrapagos is in a bit of an awkward spot because you could just go ahead and go for the Calm Mind like you wanted to do the previous turn, but yeah, I was going to say this turn probably is warranted of the going for the Terra onto the Terrapagos, because not only do you get rid of the rain, which would make Hurricane inaccurate and make Weather Ball's power weaker, it would just go ahead and ultimately lead this Raging Bolt a bit more pressure towards this team. Pelipper switches out though for Gayle, and in comes the Rillaboom once again. So there is going to be at least damage control to make sure that when the Terrapagos goes for the Terastallization, you have Drizzle activatable once again now that the rain is going to be gone. And that's exactly what's going to be happening. Not quite yet, because we're going to see Zamazenta go for that Grass Terra to make sure it's resistant towards those electric type attacks. Here comes now the Terra from the Terrapagos, meaning the rain is going to go away, and that was actually a really good call from Gayle to get rid of the Pelipper before it actually got fainted to reset the rain for later. And as well, get rid of the Dynasty Terrain to make sure HP recovery is gone from the situation. Big body press goes into this Terrapagos, almost gets a one-hit knockout for the super effective damage here. There goes Earth Power, which unfortunately is now hitting two different grass types. One of them being that Zamazenta is not going to be doing a whole lot of damage with that Earth Power. Thunderbolt once again goes into the Pelipper slot. That's a decent amount of damage there. No critical hit necessary. That was all off a magnet. And now the situation is a little bit pivotal because although you could go for another electric type on this Rillaboom, Terrapagos is much in danger because, well, another body press outspeeds it and KOs it. So I think it's more than likely you gotta go for Protect and Draco Meteor onto the Zamazenta to make sure it survives the turn here. We do see one Protect from Brian, and it's gonna be the Terrapagos. What does Gayle do here? No, it's gonna be a double Protect. It's got the turn. So what does Gayle do in this situation? Is it fake out and then a body press? No fake out comes out. So body press goes into the Raging Bolt slot. And the Rillaboom here, it was going for the U-turn, and it likely was into the Terrapagos, and it's the Terrapagos. U-turn comes out. Here goes the Thunderclap into this Rillaboom. Not enough to knock out quite yet, unfortunately. Body press into the Raging Bolt. Does have damage there. And the Wood Hammer does outspeed the Terrapagos. Once again, the Restrictor goes down from Brian. That Terrapagos was just there to be hit and KO'd. Down it goes, and Brian is now down to two Pokemon. It's going to be that Rillaboom and that Raging Bolt left. Yeah, there's the Rillaboom once again. It's going to reset that grassy terrain to get at least some recovery going, but I think that's going to harm him more than it'll benefit him because Gayle's actually in a much better spot to control that Zamazenta. And then, although you could get a fake out off onto the Rillaboom, I think it's more likely it's going to switch out and then reset the rain for Pelipper. Yeah, this is a terrible position to be in if you're Brian, because your electric type attacks are only effective against the Pelipper that's left. And we don't even know what Gale's last Pokemon is, I don't think, because all we've seen was a Pelipper, a Rillaboom, a Zamazenta. Yeah, that's all we've seen. Raging Bolt going to protect as well as the Zamazenta for this turn. Fake out lands onto this Rillaboom, and down goes Gale's Rillaboom. But what comes in here? Does the Pelipper come in here? Or does the unknown Pokemon from Gale come out? And okay, we do see the last Pokemon from Gale. It's going to be that Urshifu Rapid Strike. So it's prime Thunderclap bait, but that just lets Zamazenta do what it wants, which is a body press onto the Raging Bolt, which might be enough to knock it out. And if it does knock it out, then that's likely curtains for Brian. Although conversely, Thunderclap is enough to knock out the Urshifu as well as Grassy Glide. So you could just go Grassy Glide into Rillaboom and then Draco Meteor onto the Zamazenta. But instead here, Gale's going to switch out their Urshifu into their Pelipper. And that's going to not only reset the rain, but will avoid the Thunderclap outright, because that slot did not go for an attack. And that's exactly what happens. Raging Bolt going to fail that Thunderclap. What does the Rillaboom do here? Nothing quite yet. Body press, not enough to knock out the Raging Bolt. Here's a U-turn into the Zamazenta. Does okay damage, but okay is not good enough in the situation where +1 defense Zamazenta is just there and taking the hits. And this Pelipper sort of has a decision to make, because you get Thunderclap there, you lose the Pelipper, and you don't have a way to get back into this game, because if you keep getting Thunderclap into that slot, you're likely going to be losing out to the Zamazenta sooner than later. And the Raging Bolt is going to protect here to make sure this Rillaboom can get at least get an uncontested attack off onto this Pelipper. Nope, we see a Protect come out from this Pelipper, so no Thunderclap comes out there quite yet. Body press into the Protect, not doing any damage anytime soon into that slot. What does the Rillaboom do here, though? It's a Wood Hammer, and it went to the Pelipper. Big turn right now for Brian. Both Pelipper and Raging Bolt are protected. Zamazenta likely to be faster at the two of all the Pokemon here between Gayle and Brian. And when these turns happen, we are going to be able to see what happens in this. In terms of damage, because if Zamazenta can knock out the Raging Bolt before going for a Thunderbolt, then that'd be great, because once Rillaboom gets put in a situation where he can't really deal with the Pelipper, that probably signals game over. But Thunderclap conversely knocks the Pelipper, so do you switch out the Pelipper for the Urshifu and dodge the Thunderclap and allow Zamazenta to get a free KO onto the Raging Bolt, or do you worry about the Rillaboom and try to get a Hurricane off? And we're going to see no Thunderclap come out. There's a body press into the Raging Bolt, and now this Rillaboom likely going to be in trouble now that Pelipper has at least a free reign to go for a Hurricane. It is Wood Hammer, does not KO it, and it does not KO. Does this Pelipper go for the Hurricane? It goes for the Hurricane. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. Gayle Taylor, not quite ready to set yet off 5 HP, and there's a confusion as well. Okay, not quite over yet, but there is a confusion on the Rillaboom, meaning now it has a chance to hit itself and lose the game for Brian. But the Zamazenta's faster anyway, so this is still game over nonetheless. The Zamazenta is able to get another body press off onto this Rillaboom. Can it at least get a hit off, or will it hit itself in its own confusion? It gets a hit off onto this Grassy Glide, onto the Pelipper, not enough for the knockout there. Body press ends the set. Gayle Taylor wins 2-0 over Brian Diaz. Good job there by Gayle. You know, they controlled the situation perfectly with Zamazenta and allowed herself to get into a point, allowed themselves to get into a point where you can get the situation controlled with the Zamazenta and make sure that Raging Bolt is no longer a problem. And more importantly, that Terrapos was really just a non-factor from Brian, because it just did nothing. It had Terra Starstorm, I think, blocked by Wide Guard, and it had Earth Powers to go for time and time again, and none of it actually worked. And so, unfortunately for Brian, none of that damage actually ended up working out for him in the first place, and that's unfortunate how his game was lost for him. And now we're going to have to go into another break here for round number 6 here, coming up after this break.